Bones, to me, represent both life and death. The form and inherent design of bones are so beautiful and exquisite. They tell a story about what they do and the structure that they hold. But on their own, when they're separated from that structure, they're very intriguing of how did this shape come to be. We generally think of bones as rigid because we see the bones that are left after death. But bones are actually really dynamic, living things that continue to grow and take form because of the forces that are put upon them.
When I think about the future, I envision a world transformed by technology. When humans are not only healed by advances in science, medicine, and technology, but also modified, transformed, enhanced, and extended physically and emotionally, even connected to machines and each other. When we're surrounded by autonomous robots, machines that learn, immersed in virtual realities, metaverses, and hyperverses. When our environment, our air, weather, food, and space is all modified by science and technology. When the lines of what is artificial and what is natural begin to blur. But the future is now. A lot of these advances have already happened, and it hasn't all gone according to plan. There's also been unforeseen consequences. My name is Amy Karle, and I'm an artist who studies what it means to be human and what it means to be alive at this time of merging with technology. I study this dynamic range of how our exponential and emerging technologies can lead us to an enlightened future or to our demise, depending on how we use them. I explore this through creating artwork using those exact technologies as tools in the process, with a focus on healing and enhancing the body and our lives. We are remaking ourselves and in our environment at an ever-increasing rate. I'm concerned with evolution that natural selection never designed and never intended. I question if tampering with nature in this way is wise. I work as an artist because that's the way that I research, develop, and communicate through best. My projects probe how exponential technology and interventions can alter the course of our future. I use emerging and exponential technologies as tools in my art making process because it's important that I actually use the tech that I'm questioning. When I do that, I come up with new workflows, new ideas, even develop new technologies. But I'm also becoming hyper aware of how they can actually perform, what the limitations could be, what the opportunities are, what the dangers and pitfalls are. Technology can be used as a tool in the process of understanding what it means to be human in many ways. We can use our technology as a reflection back to us, like to measure a heartbeat as a simple way of looking at things. But there's also this study of how technology shapes what it means to be human. We can look at our social medias for strong examples of that. But we can also look at our genetics and genetic modifications. And these are things that I question because when we modify humans in this way, it has an exponential effect that cannot be undone. A way of shaping what it means to be human is like when we do implants or use genetic modifications or pharmaceuticals. And I'm toggling these different states through my art making practice. Using the technology almost always creates new artifacts and new ways of thinking. It makes new aesthetics. It makes new ways of creating things that were never possible to create before when you use different technologies. And it also shapes the creator's thinking. When I'm using different tools and technologies, all of a sudden I'm learning in a different way. I have different processes. And I'm also thinking about that in terms of implanting into other humans and altering our human species, altering our human race, altering the future. I explore the possibilities of making physical and emotional enhancements and extensions to empower us. How can we use our technologies for our best and highest good? How can we use our technologies to empower our lives now and into the future? And what are some of the unforeseen consequences in that process? Because even with the best intentions, there can still be unforeseen consequences. And how do we get ahead of that? How do we ask really hard and important questions on the onset so that we get closer to our intended target? Because there's always going to be bad actors. But if we can do what we can to foresee that in the beginning, we can make bigger strides that way. I use a number of different tools, including AI, machine learning, biotechnology, artificial neural networking, bioprinting, 3D printing, decentralized computing, and I'm most well known for my bio art. Bioart is a contemporary art form where artists integrate biological concepts into works of art and also adapt scientific methods and biotech to explore living systems as artistic subjects. For me, I combine physical, digital, and computational forms in my bioart practice as well, because the way that I see our future going, the future of science, medicine, and technology is integrating the computational and the physical. And with that, there's all these philosophical and bioethical components as well. Crucial to this practice is questioning how these technological tools, modifications, and interventions could impact ourselves, can impact humanity, and can impact the world. It's important to really look at who's benefiting or profiting off of them and what are the outcomes because of that. We have to ask, are these advancements for our best and highest good? Are we using this technology for our betterment, or is it for harm? And what are the long-term implications? It's really important that we ask difficult questions and really look at the potential impacts of technology, especially when it's really exciting and seems like it can make a big potential impact. That impact could be positive, but it can also be negative. We are at a time where we have the technology to achieve and create almost anything that we can envision. So we have to ask ourselves, what is wise to create? Just because we can make it doesn't mean we should make it. Just because we can do it doesn't mean that we should do it, especially when it comes to things like genetic modifications that can't be undone over multiple generations. The video Bringing Bones to Life goes over my entire process of creating my bioart piece, Regenerative Reliquary. Regenerative Reliquary is a bioart piece that is 3D printed scaffolds for stem cell culture into bone installed in a bioreactor. So the intention is that human stem cells taken from a living donor that are placed onto this scaffold will over time grow into tissue and then mineralize into bone. Initially, this idea could be made for those who need a replacement part or an extension. I was born with a life-threatening birth defect and I'm still missing bone in part of my skull. So maybe this kind of procedure could be used for someone like that, or for someone who needs an organ transplant. The idea is that if we can give our own genetic material, our own stem cells to grow a custom part specifically for ourselves, there could potentially be a lower risk of rejection. And that is very exciting for the idea of healing and enhancing the body for saving lives. But with a lot of these medical technologies, then it becomes to a place where we have to start looking at then who is eligible for this. You know, at the beginning, it would probably be for people who are on the transplant list waiting for a transplant. But then we have to say, like, well, then who would come next? Would we start putting this into people's bodies as they age, as they get older? Now, I'm really excited about this prospect in some ways because bioprinting offers this potential to be able to possibly extend a human lifespan far beyond what we can now. Modern medicine has done a fabulous job of keeping us alive and keeping us healthy to a full human lifespan, but nothing has been able to make us live to like 300 years, 500 years. And I wonder if we could replace our organs as they age, if we would be able to then live to a much longer human lifespan. So that part of it is exciting. But then when we start to dive into it, we have to question who would be able to have those organs. So like in America, it would probably be for those who can afford it. And in some other countries, it might be for those who are seen as talented or exceptional in some way, or, you know, political figures. And this could be very concerning. Also, it brings up issues of the right to life and the right to die. Like, who gets to choose to continue to live with these implants or this kind of use of technology? And do we have the right to pass away? What if somebody gets a transplant and lives, but then, you know, decides they don't want to live anymore? And we also have to consider issues of overpopulation. So a lot of different issues get brought up with this kind of artwork. That is only one question of many. I hope that you will enjoy seeing Bringing Bones to Life and start to have some of your own questions about what it means to modify and enhance the body, what a perfect state of mind and body is, and if that's something that we can achieve with our technology, that we should use our technology to achieve, and maybe some ways that you can start working towards that in your everyday life as it is.